Hello everybody, welcome to today's meeting of the County Planning Committee. It's Wednesday the 11th of June 2025. I'm Councillor Gillian Campbell and I'm Chair of the committee and I'm chairing today's meeting. The meeting is being broadcast live through our YouTube channel, and before we commence I've just got one or two things to mention so that everything runs smoothly. I would like to ask everybody to switch off or make silent your mobile phones or the devices, and ask people to keep their mics switched off unless they're asked to speak. If they're asked to speak, can they please switch on the mic and introduce themselves. When invited to speak, as I say, just say your name so we know who's talking. We have a number of officers with us this afternoon who I will now ask to introduce themselves, starting with Kirsty.
Kirsty Charlton, Committee Services.
Neil Carter, I'm the solicitor to the committee.
Stephen Reid, I'm the Planning Manager, Chair.
Graham Blakey, Principal Planning Officer and presenting today.
Thank you. We can now move on to the agenda. Firstly, do we have any apologies for absence?
Councillors Bell, Freeman and Wilkes.
And have any substitute members been nominated?
Councillor Heatherside for Councillor Bell and Councillor Neal for Councillor Wilkes.
And do we have any declarations of interest today? No? Thank you. Next, moving on to the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of April 2025. Can we approve those minutes? Do I have a proposer? Yes? Councillor, thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Stevenson. Thank you. Right, we can now move on to the officers' report.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Graham Blakey. I'm the Principal Planning Officer for the Strategic Development Team, and it's my job today to present an application to yourselves. That is for 97 homes by Gleeson Homes Development on the edge of Ledgate near Consett in County Durham. As you can see on the screen, that development is encapsulated of a number of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom dwellings, as well as some bungalows, which will come on to the detail of that in due course. Just to set a bit of context and set this one up, it lies to the northeast quadrant of Ledgate. It's a village that forms part of the Consett cluster, Consett being off to the southwest on the image before you, which is in this location for those in the chamber. Zooming in, the site is flanked by the Billingside Plantation to the northeast, housing around Town Avenue here on the southwest, to the southeast, Watling Street bungalows to the southwest. The topography of the area generally falls from south to north towards the early stages of what will become the Pont Burn, which you can see informally here to the northwest, that flowing again off to the northeast. Site access is proposed via Pont Road to the northeast boundary of the site, and here we see photos of Pont Road around the proposed location of the access. Works to the lay-by and village gateway feature are proposed, and detail of that is recommended to be secured by condition post this committee. The site itself is made of paddock grassland, which is now displaying limited use of maintenance. The photo on the left shows the properties around Town Avenue, which you can just see in the very distance. And the photo on the right, the rears of Watling bungalows, Pont and Bradley bungalows to the northwest. Here we have a photo looking south from Bradley bungalows, Pont bungalows, showing the site beyond the wooded Pont Burn. So the wooded burn is here in the foreground. You can just make out the properties slightly above that, with St Ives Church there behind on the ridge to the south. This photo montage shows the view across the site from Weir Avenue, which is to the south, looking north, back towards the location of the photo previously shown. Again, this indicates the paddock nature of the site and gives an idea of where that sits. And finally, some photos of the adjacent land within the existing housing of Tyne Avenue, showing the areas of open space previously where housing was cleared in the past and via which non-vehicular access is proposed as part of this proposal. Turning now to the development proposals, on screen now is the proposed site layout. This shows the proposed access via Pont Road to the northeast, outward facing development to the site boundaries indicated by the road layout. It also includes drainage features near Pont Road where there's been historic surface water issues, again towards the northeast. Pedestrian connections can be seen in 3 locations on the interface of existing housing to the southeast, here, here and again here. A landscape edge is proposed to the northwest boundary to reinforce the visual containment of the site when viewed from the north. The proposals would deliver 15 affordable homes in line with planning policy and the county's own plan requirements, and these would be pepper potted around the site as indicated by the colours on this plan. The development would feature a number of different house types and sizes, from 2-bed semi-detached bungalows all the way up to 3- and 4-bed detached properties. The consultation exercise upon the application has drawn no objections from selected consultees, with those listed being those who would deem the proposals acceptable subject to the imposition of conditions to an approval for agreement of detailed post-determination. The application was also subject to a public consultation period involving local press advertisement, site notice and notification letters to properties deemed to be affected by the proposal. A total of 61 objections were received, as summarised in paragraph 91 of the officer report. Since the finalisation of the publication of the report last week to the committee, the LPA have received 3 further objections to the proposals. These broadly overlap with those outlined in the report as aforementioned, but include impacts on services and infrastructure of Legate, pollution, wildlife impacts, the speed of the traffic to roads nearby, and also a lack of solar PV on some of the properties. So in summary, the application site is not allocated, but is considered to be well related to the settlement of Legate, and so assessment under Policy 6 of the County Durham Plan can be made. Further, the layout and design of the proposals are considered to be acceptable in the context of the application site and Policy 29. There are no technical details which are outstanding or which cannot be secured by condition. The scheme would deliver the policy required affordable housing and older person provision. There would, as with all development to land not previously developed, be a level of harm to the landscape from building in this location. However, this harm is not considered to be sufficient to outweigh the benefits outlined briefly above and in detail in the officer report before you, and as such, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now we have reached the point where some speakers may be invited. I understand there's nobody present who wishes to speak. Is that correct? Yeah. Yes, thank you. So we can now move to questions from the members. Does anybody want to raise a question? Councillor Scott. Councillor Scott.
Councillor Kenny Hope. I know the area well, and on that road itself there's a lot of recovery vehicles. This there's going to have a lot of issues for the local populace moving around once people get moved in there. Is any proposals to put something in place to stop that from becoming a bit of a bottleneck?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, aware of the vehicles that you're on about, see them regularly when passing through the area. They are, in effect, parked on the public highway outside the residential properties to the south of the site. Ultimately, if they're taxed and tested and MOT'd, etc., the road legal, there's nothing the planning system can do about that, but evidently they are on the highway. One might consider the loss of the lay-by that was shown on some of the photographs as a potential issue. However, I've never seen said vehicles in that lay-by. Ultimately, that movement of vehicles from this development was taken into account. The speeds ultimately are looking to be reduced, repositioning of that 40-mile-an-hour speed limit to bring the 30-mile-an-hour further out towards this site. So I think ultimately, there's a number of issues in the immediate local area with parking of vehicles on the highway. I know of a car garage nearby as well, which is, we'll look at that under the relevant powers. But if anything comes into the planning authority, we'll look at that. But ultimately, if they're on the road, there's nothing that this application can do for that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hope, you've got another question? Sorry.
Yes, grip bins, I think it's typically £1,500 to install, and there's a maintenance fee with that. Is the developer going to be providing that cost, or will that be coming down to the individual councillors coming from their funding to be able to cover the cost of that within the estate?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, one of the things that happens on all new development is the internal road network would end up being built by the developer, and at the point where they're nearing completion, it would be handed over to the Highway Authority of the Council. That's commonly referred to as a Section 38 agreement. These numbers will start being bombarded at you, I'm afraid, over the coming couple of years, but that's where the legal agreement by which the Council takes that on board. That would be the process through which we could secure that from the developer, and there's various different costs and bonds and other things that will come through that. So it's an idea, it's something we'll liaise with our Highway Authority on and look through that process. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Heaviside, did you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Phil Heaviside from Rumney Division. I came in as a late substitute yesterday and I read the papers thoroughly last night. As far as I can see, it ticks all the boxes on plan policy. It seems well related to the existing housing estates and bounded by the road to give it a natural boundary. So, in my opinion, I think I propose that we support the officer's recommendation and approve the application.
Thank you. Does anyone... Sorry, apologies. Any further questions? Councillor Madison.
Councillor Liz Madison, Spennymoor Division. I read in the papers that this particular development is not in the current County Durham plan, and the new plan isn't yet in place. Could I just establish, is this a windfall site that's being created because it's not in the County Durham plan? Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Madison, this is, with it being under Policy 6 of the County Durham plan, can be termed things like a windfall site, a non-allocated housing development, because other sites, if they're allocated, would be looked at under Policy 4. So in effect, it's out with the numbers that are housing numbers that are supposed to be supplied under the County Durham plan. You may have an allocation in your division that you're aware of, and this sits outside of that. We've done the assessment under Policy 6 and ultimately deemed that in the round there was not enough harm from the proposals to withhold planning permission for that. So that's why we're recommending it for approval via Policy 6 in this instance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Thank you, Chair. I haven't seen any of the documents that I've got with regards to Swift Bricks. This area itself is a semi-rural area, and there is a lot of Swifts within the area. Is there any plans to install this type of stuff?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hope. The scheme is subject to what we call an ecology mitigation scheme. There is bird and bat boxes within a number of the properties. I don't know the exact number, but there is a set percentage there. Also, there'll be other mitigations on there. Obviously, if the council have a direction of travel on that going forward, it's something we'll liaise with our colleagues in ecology, and as these sites come forward, we'll start to develop that into proposals, I imagine. But there is bird boxes proposed as part of this, so that'll be covered. We've got a condition in there that says that the ecology mitigation scheme should be carried in accordance with a particular plan, and that's ultimately how we do that. So yeah, that's secured. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Will that be followed up then regarding the Swift Bricks?
Yeah, it's something we'll talk with our ecologists. We'll look to see. It might be something under the generic bird boxes that we've actually been doing for a lot of years. It's that type of detail that without the ecology officer here, we can't 100% confirm today. But ultimately, I feel assured with the question that was raised, that with that mitigation in place today, that there is something, we'll get, you know, we'll look at the next scheme and see if that detail occurs and have an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. So no further questions? Fine. Is there anyone who can second the proposal? Thank you, Thank you, Councillor Bellingham. So the application is approved.
It needs to go to a vote, councillor, so we've got a mover and a seconder, and then we put it to a vote then.
Apologies. So we now have a motion to approve and it's been seconded, so we put the question of approval of this planning application to a vote.
So, Chair, all those in favour, would need to, I think Councillor Madison's got a question just before we go to the vote. Have you, Councillor Madison?
Can I just, please, is the developer here today, and can we hear from them if they are here?
I believe that there are representatives of the developer here today.
He doesn't want to speak, so.
Do you have a question for the developer, Councillor Madison?
Sorry, just to check with the developer that the commitments, as we have in this detailed plan, will be agreed.
Thank you. I believe there's Mr Dodson here from the developers. Would you like to answer that question, Mr Dodson?
Yeah, my name's Chris Dodds. I'm Land Director at Gleeson. So, sorry, was it just in terms of the planning conditions? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, obviously the conditions, there's a range of kind of pre-development, kind of prior to occupation, etc. So, you know, we adhere to those. We discharge those conditions before the relevant period. The Section 106 is, I think, you know, it's a legal agreement. We sign into it, you know, from that point of view. So, you know, we are legally obliged anyway to do it. So, and you know, I think we kind of cover off our obligations probably earlier than we are obliged to through the Section 106 agreement anyway in most instances. So yes, I can confirm.
Chair, could I ask a supplementary question as well, please?
Yes, go ahead.
One of the issues that we have on a number of developments, new developments across the county, is where we plant the trees in relation to the houses. And in some areas we do have trees planted very close to the properties themselves. And I would ask if there is consideration being given to that in with the work with the developer and the officers. These small trees grow into bigger ones, which in turn present problems for our estates teams when these estates are adopted.
Thank you. I think Planning Officer can answer that one.
Hi, Councillor Madison. I'll come back on that one. Obviously, the issue with trees on new housing developments are more than just the proximity to houses now. They're largely caught up in net biodiversity gain. So there's an issue whereby if you plant a tree too close to a house and it undermines the house, ultimately the house always wins and the tree will get cut down. What we're trying to do and what we are doing is making sure that those trees are planted away from residential curtilages. You know, there's a big thing in the MPPF about street trees and getting those within streets to create a hierarchy of streets. We part of the design process is we get that within the public realm now, within developments. Now, clearly what you may be seeing on site now is potentially developments that were granted permission upwards of a decade ago. This is modern policy and the direction that we're heading in. So everything that you saw on the landscape plan around the periphery of the site, hence the outward facing development, is all within the public realm. And that public realm would end up being transferred most likely into a private management company that the residents contribute to. That seems to be the direction of travel that we see all the time. The council does offer adoptions. It comes with a cost that is available to the developers, but it's often a significant cost to ensure the future liability of the council's not impinged in terms of its own budget. So modern design does look to take that on board and try and hit the sweet spot between that. Should a resident plant a tree in a domestic curtilage, then that's ultimately done at their own risk. So I just want to loop back to the 106 question as well, because I think it's important to understand the logistics of that. Not only does the developer sign up to that, but also the county council enables us as a party on that signature enforce any underpayment or late payment or non-payment at all. Ultimately, that agreement needs signed before a decision notice is released and the development can go ahead. And ultimately, without a signed 106, then ultimately we cannot, we won't grant permission, the development won't go ahead. So there is instances where that hasn't actually happened, even though we've been through instances such as today. So just to give that assurity on that angle, that legally binding, once that's signed and sealed by the council, that is it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just to pick up on what the planning officer said, and in connection with Councillor Madison's comments. So clearly there's a recommendation for approval in accordance with a suite of conditions, subject to a suite of conditions and a 106, and that's sort of all set out in paragraph 295 of the report onwards. There's a motion to approve the application subject to those conditions in 106 in accordance with the recommendation that's been seconded. It'll go to a vote in a moment. But if members do decide to approve, then clearly, as the planning officer says, that 106 has to be completed before the planning permission is issued. So we've got control over that process, and equally the planning permission will not be issued without those conditions being attached to it. So that's sort of how the mechanics of it work.
Thank you. No further questions at this point. So I think we left it, we're now ready for a vote on whether to approve the application. If members would like to now vote, raise your hands. All those in favour of the application? Thank you. Motion carried. That brings us to the end of the session today. Thank you very much.